It all started subtly at first, a strange sense of being watched, like eyes were always on me, even when I was alone. The feeling lingered, gnawing at the edges of my mind. At first, I shrugged it off as paranoia. Everyone has moments like that, right? But then it began to escalate. I started noticing patterns. Small things at first, people looking at me a moment too long, drivers slowing down as they passed by, a group of people seemingly waiting for me to pass by them, only to disperse as I walked closer. It was the way they moved, or rather, the way they didn't. It was as if they were playing out a script, like characters in a video game whose actions weren't truly their own. There were the same individuals who appeared day after day, like clockwork. One was a man in a grey hoodie who always seemed to cross my path at the corner of my block. His gaze never strayed from the ground, his hands shoved deep in his pockets. Another was a woman, always in dark sunglasses, who would walk slowly, always ahead of me, never looking back, but always in my vicinity. It wasn't just the repetitive nature of their appearances, it was the way they seemed to anticipate my every move. Soon, I started to see it more clearly, the NPCs. At first, I thought it was just a quirky term, something I'd seen on a forum once, but now, it seemed to make sense. Non-playable characters. They weren't real, not in the sense that you or I were. They existed only to serve a purpose, to make me feel watched, to make me feel like I was part of something bigger. They didn't respond like regular people. If I smiled at them, they wouldn't smile back, they'd just glance over their shoulder, or stare past me as if I weren't there at all. I tried to test it. I would walk into a cafe and order a coffee, only to find that a woman sitting by the window had ordered the same exact drink moments before, right before I'd even entered. Was she following me? Was it just coincidence? I started paying closer attention. There was a man with a briefcase who always seemed to take the same route to work, but not just that, he would always be standing at the same exact spot when I arrived at my usual bus stop. Another time, a bus pulled up at my stop, and the exact same two passengers got on, sitting in the same seats as they had the day before. And the day before that. I wasn't imagining it anymore. They weren't real. They were part of something I couldn't fully understand. The thought made me uneasy, but I couldn't stop. Everywhere I went, I noticed the strange, robotic movements. It wasn't just a feeling anymore, it was a certainty. The world around me felt like a stage, and the people were just actors reading lines. I was the only one who wasn't scripted. But then it got worse. It wasn't just people on the street anymore. It was in my home, too. At first, it was just the sound of someone knocking on my door, but when I checked, no one was there. Or the creaking of the floorboards late at night, when I knew I was the only one in my apartment. Then, the messages started. Little things, left in my mailbox. Notes with cryptic phrases, "We're watching, you can't escape, it's too late now." The handwriting was never the same, but it always carried the same haunting weight. The worst part? I realized I wasn't the only one. As I looked around, I began to see others. People who seemed off. Like their movements were too rehearsed, too precise. Like they didn't belong in the chaos of life. There was a barista at the coffee shop who, every single morning, would tilt her head at the same exact angle when handing me my drink. A homeless man who sat in the corner, always muttering to himself about the game and the mission. I couldn't shake the feeling that they were all a part of the same thing, playing roles they didn't even know they were playing. And what terrified me the most was the thought that I was the only one who knew. Was I the only one not trapped in the script? Was I the only one who could see the cracks in the illusion? There was no escape. I couldn't talk to anyone about it, they'd just think I was crazy. I felt trapped, in a world that wasn't mine, surrounded by people who weren't real. And all the while, the gang stalkers, whoever they were, whatever they were, kept closing in, tightening their grip. I was being watched, I was being followed, but I was also being erased. It's hard to explain what it feels like to be the last real person left in a world of simulation. The pressure mounts, and you begin to wonder, if they can manipulate the world around you, what's stopping them from rewriting your story, too?